If you use Slack for client comms, I'm going to show you 3 things that you can do in order to make Slack work way better at scale. And for those that don't know, I'm Sheni from Icarus Growth. I work with agencies, info product companies, and events companies to help them increase their client capacity through systems, automations, and AI agents. Most of the people that work with me, either one of 2 things happen. Either they expand the size of their team tremendously, or they double, triple, 10x, and sometimes even 20x their revenue because they've alleviated a lot of their operational bottlenecks. So I'm going to show you these 3 right now. So 3 ways to make Slack better with your team. And this here is a little bit of information that I got from one of my clients who said that one of their team members filled this in their end of day form. Very productive day. The new project management really does help me in organizing my schedule and overall workflow better. We love to see it. All right. Thing number 1, the CAN principle. So what is the CAN principle? Context, action, notification, navigation. Every single Slack message that you send from any automation platform needs to have or meet these 4 criteria, or else it's an incomplete message. This is an example of all that is required in order to achieve these 4 things. You need this. So you can see here that we have a number of different things here. If I move this out of the way, you can see a little bit more clearly. We have the name, which is the name of the thing, due date, which is the due date, the status, which is in QA. This all forms the content. Then we have the navigation, which is an actual tag here. This could be a specific person. This could be the entire channel. This could be here for anybody who's online who needs to see this right now. This is the notification. Then we have the action. Click here to check it out. And you know that it's a new task, and this context is, and the status is also going to tell you what the action is. And then we have a link, and this link is your navigation. Why do you need these 3 things, or these 4 things, sorry? Well, the very first thing to understand is that when you are using the CAN principle, people can get to the work directly from Slack. Now, why is that important? Well, you may be on the go. This is something that I've noticed with people who are operations managers or founders that still check the content that their content agencies editors are making. When we turn that link that I just showed you into a link to a frame review link, oftentimes what happens is someone can just sit in a channel and just click on every single link, go straight to frame on their phone, leave any comments on any videos that need amendments, and just start clicking things left and right. So for those guys who are super ambitious, who are working 24/7, who are in bed at 11:30 looking at client short form, who then go through and say, yep, this is good, yep, this is good, no, this is bad, yep, this is good, before going to bed, you can literally knock it off just like that, as long as you have the notification that takes you straight there, because this is meant to, or is designed to take you to the direct action, or the direct card or video or asset or deliverable that needs to be, in this case, checked. So that's one of the biggest things that need to occur. The second thing, people work async. And because people work asynchronously, you need to be able to make it so that work can be done when you're not at the desk, because people live in different time zones. You may not be working that day. You may be working late that day, and somebody else could be working late that day, and some stuff needed to have been done in the morning, and you're working in the evening in order to be able to check things out. You need to be able to send a message that will deliver to the member of staff that you are working with in order for them to get to the thing at the time that they need to get to it. Another extension of this is that you actually have sources of accountability, because if something was meant to have been done and it wasn't done, but the notification went out, then we can already rule out, did you know that you were meant to do this? So and this is what I find when I work with the people that I work with, if I have something that is a task that was meant to go out, or that was set, and the thing hasn't been done, there are a couple of questions that I have to ask that mean that I was at fault. One, did you know how to do the thing? If you knew how to do the thing, we can rule that out. Number 2, did you know that the thing was meant to be done and at the pace that it was meant to be done, or at the due date it was meant to be done at? If I can rule that out, then I can also say, then, all right, you knew what was needed to be done and you knew how to do it. Now we can ask you, like, why didn't the thing get done? Now we can have that conversation. This Slack message achieves that second part there. You now have accountability. You now know that this was delivered and it was meant to have gone out, but you didn't see it, you didn't get to it. So this is number one. This is the CAN principle. Context, action, notification, navigation. It tells people what needs to be done. It tells people the due date, the status, etc. It gives all of the context behind the task that is meant to be done. Then we have the action, which is what the person who has been tagged, i.e. notification, needs to do. And then we have navigation, which is the direct link to the source for them to be able to start the work. That is number one. So what's number two? Number two is one channel, one use case. So you can see here, this is actually what we do for all of our content agencies. There is always going to be a review. So the editing pipeline for content in general goes new thing to edit, thing to review, things fixed, things approved, things to fix, things that have been approved. So you can see here that we have approved videos, new content, content review, amendments. That tax on all four of those. Then we have sales and onboarding. After onboarding, we have general like editor updates and designer updates. Those channels are either anomalous messages, i.e. this doesn't relate to the editing pipeline but is an automation that would need to be done, or, and this is usually what ends up happening, it is the communication channel that the operations manager or the founder with the people in that department or that function of the business have their back and forth conversations. So if you are speaking with somebody inside of your team who is the ops manager, and that ops manager is in charge of all things copywriting. Let's say you do email marketing or you do copywriting for different businesses where you're creating newsletters and stuff like that. Let's say there's a bunch of copywriters and there's like one or two developers in there who are building certain automations that need to be built for the clients that are being made. And they could be, for example, the people who just make the MailChimp, okay, day one, after day one, day two, day three, day four, they make the flow and they copy and paste all that information in there. Those conversations all need to be held in one channel. If you start putting things in that channel that don't need to go there, then you can distract the people who are meant to be in those channels. So why do we set things out where it's one channel and one use case? Well, the main thing is separation of concerns. All of these channels, apart from video editor updates and designer updates, are automation channels, which means conversation is not meant to happen there. This is important because when automations happen in the same channels as everybody else's conversation, the conversations get shrouded out. If an automation for whatever goes haywire and there's like 20 or 30 things that have just been planted in front of somebody, then the chances are there is a number of different pieces of conversation that happened prior to those automation triggers occurring that are now just going to get drowned out. Now you're having conversations about why this was forgotten and why this was missed. And you also just get a massive scroll that you have to do inside of Slack in order to find the information that you were looking for in the first place. So that's the main thing, separation of concerns. So I'm just going to put this over here. Now, number two for that is also related to the CAN principle in that each channel has an embedded task within it. So what does this mean? If I am working inside of any of these systems, let's say I'm an editor and I'm meant to be making edits for a particular client, and this client is somebody who's a little bit, pernickety. Maybe they just have a lot of things to say about some of the content that's being made, or they just throw a lot of amendments back. If I am in the channel amendments and I am in the channel new content and I'm in the channel approved videos as well, then I get confirmation that I have done the right thing when an item lands in approved. I also know that there's work to be redone if something lands in amendments. So I can just check any of these channels and make sure that I am doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing. That also means that we can add only the relevant people to the relevant places. So when you're using Slack for a gigantic organization, the chances are you're most likely everybody's in Slack. Everybody's in the exact same workspace, which means that you're going to have channels in different sections. This section, as you can see up here, is just channels. They haven't actually I haven't divided this up because this isn't my own Slack. But what will often happen is you'll have different sections for different team members. So the sales team are going to be in their own side, and the operations and fulfillment team are going to be in their other side. And you may have some people in client success who are in some of both. You're going to have the founder in everything. You're going to have the ops manager in all of the operations chats. You're going to have the sales managers and the sales directors in all of the sales chats. Having an embedded task within a specific channel means that only the relevant people need to be in those channels. So if you have setters, and those setters are meant to pick up the phone the moment that a new opt-in occurs, you can have a channel which is just new leads. And that new leads channel will basically push any Typeform opt-ins, Active Campaign opt-ins, MailChimp opt-ins, or just responses from newsletters where we can pick up that somebody has said yes to an email that was meant to trigger something that works as a new lead. All of these opt-in automations, Calendly, etc. You can just have someone sat in there calling it off. However, that setter does not need to be in any of the contract related or sales call related conversations that are happening. So this allows for really, really good separation of concerns. The next thing is that and I've already kind of touched on this, is that we can separate automations from conversations. This is super important because, and as I've said, when you have a ton of conversation happening inside of these channels, but these channels don't actually speak on behalf of the team and how they work, because this is something that I see a lot of the time, is that you'll have a specific way of conversation happening based on who's leading conversation. That is always going to be thwarted by the number of automations that have been placed inside of that channel. If a channel is strictly conversation, you can track back very easily to historical conversation. You can find messages way more easily, and you know exactly what you need to do when it comes time to actually referencing an automation versus a conversation. Because you can tell people, hey, check the chat for blank. I'm not seeing X, Y, and Z. Just make sure to go in and just confirm that you've done A, B, and C. That is something that you can do a lot of the time. So that is why we have one channel and one use case. Number 3, and this is the juicy one. This is the side of things that I play around with a lot. Keep your Slack IDs in your project management system. What do I mean by this? So this here is the clients folder for a company that I'm currently working with. And you can see here that we have the client name here in this first row. And then in these rows, we have a bunch of IDs. One of them being the Slack Connect channel ID. This is a team folder or a team table. This is the name. These are the names of the people on the team. These are the positions, and these are their individual Slack IDs. Now, why do we keep them inside of our systems? Well, the main reason why is because of this. Payload augmentation. So what's payload augmentation? This is what happens when you use GET requests on a bunch of things so that you can bring a bunch of information into the automations that you would then make in order to make certain conversations and notifications happen. So what do I mean by that? Trigger, read, automate. You have a trigger, i.e. someone fills in a type form, and then you grab the information about the person. You get the website's details, you get their company's LinkedIn because you have their website's details. Because you have a combination of the website and the company's LinkedIn, you can find some of the people, you can find the news articles, you can find the stories, you can find posts from the owners, and then you can grab all of that information and you can use it to do way more than just adding a new person to a CRM. So here's an example of what you can do when you have a trigger. You do a bunch of read steps and then you automate. It just makes all of your automations so much more powerful. So what are some examples of times where we've used the Slack Connect channel ID and the Slack ID for different messages? I'm going to show you in some automations exactly why we have this and what we've used it for. This is the part that's really juicy, and I would 100% take this to account if you're trying to build stuff for your business or you're looking for somebody to build stuff for your business. This is an example of one of the automations. I'm going to pull up half a dozen of these, but all of these Slack messages have something called Slack user tags. Now, that is us taking the Slack ID and putting it inside of our automation so that we can programmatically, based on who was assigned, grab their Slack ID and then send them a message. If we didn't have this, we would need to make an automation for every single Slack member on the team who has been assigned to something. Or at the very least, we would need to basically turn this automation into we basically just have to add a bunch of routers to this automation. We'd have to go in here, and for person A, we do this, person B, we do this, person C, person D, person E, and just expand the length of this for no good reason. That's one example. This is another example. Whenever there is a new ad hoc task, we'll grab the information about the record and we'll grab the client's name and we'll send some information which comes from the person who is assigned to this task. We grab their user tag, which is again the Slack tag for us to be able to tag them. And that again is this information here. That is the second example. Then we have some of the more advanced automations that we've made for different people, where if we take this Slack message, you can see here that we have the editor here who is the Slack user ID, which comes from a step which is way back over here. Again, this is an example of us using trigger, read, because this is, or search. These are all indicative of read steps. Get, read, get assignee, read, automate. And all of these automations will send the right message to the right person just off that. We have this gigantic automation here, which is used to basically create what's called a version stack inside of frame.io, which is an edit management platform. But at the end of all of these, we always send a review message, which has an ID to the piece of content, and it also has an ID to the Slack user. So now, if we had to create a bunch of different routers for every single editor, and editors fly back and forth inside of a lot of content agencies. Content agencies will have 10, 12, 15, 20 different editors working on a bunch of different things, because a lot of the times it's the biggest bottleneck for different people. Literally, having this here is saving us from making this, instead of a 50 or 60 step automation, which it was when it was first made, turning it into like a 90, 100 or 110 step automation. So some other examples. This here, again, is very much whenever a task updates in status, we alert the team. We're using this switch node in order to create different messages based on essentially the status that's landed in. So if an item is blocked, like a task is blocked, we're tagging the relevant person and saying this is blocked. If it's to do, it's saying it's to do. If it's in progress, it's in progress. If it's to review, I'm waiting for review. If it's done, and you can see here, every single one of these guys has a Slack user tag, and that's how things are currently working on that front. Again, new ad hoc task. In this case, we're not actually using the assignee inside of a specific channel. We're directly sending a message to we're sending a direct message to the person, and you can do that through these Slack IDs and these Slack Connect channel IDs. So this is just an example of what the channel would be. So we would have another version of this, which is just the Slack users channel. And that is another example of it there. And then here again, everybody is inside of this channel called workflow approvals needed. So this Slack message isn't coming after a bunch of, get item messages, but we're using the @here because everybody in this channel is related to this concept, which is called workflows. So those are some very, very simple examples, some simple, some very, very hard examples as to the reason why we put those Slack IDs inside of our project management system. But what are the benefits of actually doing this? Now, one of the main benefits is the following. If we have every single one of these inside of our automations, Slack can directly influence the project management system. This means that when we speak with our automations using this, when we have the information inside of Slack, inside of our project management systems, they can talk together. They can actually talk together. They can live separately, but work can occur in one which will influence the other. That is the main reason that we use these integration platforms as a service, iPaaS, which is just another version of SaaS, which encompasses Zapier, NAN, Make, and any of the code that you would make when you're making agentic workflows in Claude Code, Replit, Cursor, or whatever it may be. All of these all are all used in order to combine different tools that live in different places, that communicate different things and allow for different tasks to be done. That is the main thing. You get to have an actual synchronous and a synchronous web of information that can be used to speak from one thing to the other. This really is, again, the reason why your team can work async. Team can work async this way. And this is because of the way that these notifications land and because of the general structure of your Slack channels as well. The third benefit that you're going to get from this is that you really can do work on the go. So you and them can do work on the go. And you also can keep accountability with every single person that you're working with. So you can keep accountability. Those are really the main reasons as to why we design, and this is again what we do for different businesses. We'll always build some sort of backend data warehouse, and which is just a fancy name for the Airtable system that's going to power everything that we will automate for them. And one of the main features is this: having a place for Slack Connect channels, having a place for the Slack IDs, because this is what's going to talk to all of the other elements of the system. Because if we don't have this system in place, then all of the fancy schmancy stuff that you're looking at right now, like automations, agents, agentic workflows, custom code, apps that are made using PRDs that get stuck inside of Cursor for your markdown files that you would then tag inside of your chat to say, go and build this, and then have it be one shot through a Ralph loop. All of that nonsense doesn't work, and it doesn't help your business if you do not have the backend data warehouse in place. If you do not have this right here, you're screwed. You are screwed. I'm not meant to blank it out. I'm meant to highlight it, and I'm going to highlight it in blue with a big fat box. If you do not have this, you're screwed. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do. If you don't have some element of a database in place, then everything that you try to build will be built on a foundation of sand. And that's the reason why we build everything that we build in the way that we build it. But just to summarize, based on everything that we spoke about, the 3 ways to make Slack better with your team is to follow the CAN principle whenever you are sending messages to people, because this enables work to happen on the go. People can get to work directly from Slack, and it's a source of accountability. Number 2, one channel per use case. You get separation of concerns. Each channel has an embedded task within it. You can add only the relevant people to the relevant places, and they know what tasks are coming from the specific place that the channel message came from, and they can get to work directly to the thing that is being spoken about from the message in and of itself. And you get to separate the automations from your conversations. Conversations will happen in any way, shape, or form. There may be strings of conversations happening in different threads. It may just be free form conversation happening. If that happens around your automations, it shrouds out all of the conversations that are happening. And then third, you keep your Slack IDs in your project management system, including the Connect channel IDs and the user IDs, because Slack directly influences the project management system when you can keep the IDs for elements of Slack inside of your project management system, because that means you can reference them across a bunch of different automations. And it means your team can work asynchronously. It means that you also get a lot of more accountability from that, and you and them can do the work that needs to be done on the go. So if you're looking for any similar system that looks just like what we've made, including some of the automations that we've seen, if you're working with some really troublesome pieces of tech or pieces of code or whatever it may be, and you'd want us to take a look at that, there'll be a link in the description for you to see some more information, whether it be to talk directly with me or to jump on our newsletter at where I send a bunch of different information about either what I've just gone out and posted or things that I'm finding out whilst I am on the ground building things for my different clients. Or you can just watch some of the other videos. There's probably going to be one like that way. There's going to be one there. So go and click that, and I'll see you on the next one.